Yo, what is going on, guys? It's your boy Aaron2420, and I'm bringing you guys my MPL Week 6 game versus BlueRogue, coach of the shit, I'm forgetting. I know it's AFC. AFC Wormadam stuff. I was trying to think because I know the initials were AFC, and I knew it was a Wormadam team. It took a second for that to click. That was literally the team name. So yeah. This video isn't just me trying to remember what Rogue's team name is, though. It's our MPL Week 6 game. So this was a very fun game overall. My opponent, of course, brings the Alolan Ninetales, Zygarde 50%, Toxicroak, Zapdos, Lycanroc, Day, and Cofagrigus, I said that so awfully, Cofagrigus. And I have the Snorlax, Terrakion, Mudsdale, Suicune, Gourgeist, and Mega Ampharos. Now, in terms of my team this week, I have an AV Snorlax. Main reason being is that overall, Rogue's options in terms of getting through my Fizdef on, let me phrase that. Rogue's options in terms of clearing my Snorlax in general are very iffy. He really only has Cofag and Toxicroak this week, and with the Assault Vest, I can sponge hit some things like the Zapdos, Alolan Ninetales. There's a couple other things too, such as Volcarona in prep. That was another reason I brought AV on my Snorlax. My team was definitely prepped around Volcarona coming, you can tell, because I brought things like Rindo Suicune with Roar as well. I brought Mega Ampharos for one, and I believe I brought it more of like a bulky spread. Just, my whole team is pretty much countered, so and then Volcarona cannot sweep through, because Volcarona was something that was very scared of me at prep. So, yeah. My Terrakion, I had brought a Choice Scarf on. Main reason being is I'm able to outspeed Volcarona at +1. It's like another thing that I brought for Volcarona, of course. My Mudsdale is a Resto Chesto spread with Fizdef. This is mainly for the Zygarde because I can just Earthquake spam versus pretty much everything in his team. Zapdos I could just Toxic Stall and beat efficiently. My Suicune, as I mentioned, it's not a Rindo set anymore. I actually changed it to Leftovers. Main reason being is that I can just protect him the Z move and then I can burn that off. So unless if he's like +2 and goes for Giga Drain over Solar Beam, but again, he didn't bring us, so it didn't really matter overall. But I have Toxic, Roar, Scald, Protect, mainly just as a Protect to Scout Z move, and also to help Toxic Stall, Roar to get rid of the Volcarona, and Scald just does nice damage versus everything besides Toxicroak, which Toxicroak I didn't expect to come. I have the Gourgeist with Will-O-Wisp, Synthesis, Seed Bomb, and Foul Play, with a Fizdef nature, and really just max Fizdef mainly for things such as Zygarde. Also Lycanroc was a little bit problematic for my team, though obviously, I mean, I still have ways around it, but it was more so just things like Drill Run could potentially be scary, also just revenging off my mons in general, more so to my matchup than to my actual team this week. But things such as Mega Ampharos get bothered by it. Also, it could potentially be a little bit scary for Terrakion, depending on like if he's Scarf or not. And finally, I have an Agility Mega Ampharos with Dragon Pulse, Thunder, Focus Blast, and Agility. As it's an Agility Mega Ampharos. Mainly just outspeed things such as Volcarona, Zygarde, Alolan Ninetales, etc. Pretty much all the fast shit on Rogue's team. And a fairly nice offensively in terms of hitting Rogue's team with like the modest nature and all that. And also base 165 special attack, of course. Sorry, you guys saw it pop up. But yeah, so overall though, I feel fairly confident in my matchup versus Rogue at this point in the game. However, let's get right into that. So, in terms of Rogue's team, I figured that my best lead was going to be Snorlax. I expected him to lead off with Lycanroc or Cofagrigus. I figured that Cofagrigus I could switch around, which is actually what he does lead off with. Or actually, he leads off with the Alolan Ninetales, my bad. That was another possible lead. I figured he might get up Veil with that. I could beat that 1v1 easily with my Snorlax. If he goes into Cofagrigus, I can switch around that fairly easily. He could have also led that for Toxic Spikes. And Lycanroc could have been a lead because rocks are very nice, of course. They're always nice to have up versus the team. So, of course, he does actually switch out here into the Cofagrigus. I had remembered he went into it turn 1, but I couldn't remember if he led off with it or not. But I did go for the return there. I figured it was my best bet, because regardless, I didn't have anything to really hit the Cofag in general with, at least to beat it 1v1, and I also didn't want to risk getting burned either this early in the game, as I don't have a Cleric option. So I did switch out, of course, here, and I went into Pisces, our Suicune. Main reason being is that if he tries to burn me, that's perfectly fine. It's not that bad in terms of damage points, as long as he doesn't go for Toxic, I guess. He actually went for a knockoff here, probably trying to knock off my Snorlax. I didn't think maybe I was like a Gluttony Berry set, whereas I was actually AV with, I believe I was Stick Fat. If not, I was Immunity. I forgot what my ability was, to be honest. But I go into Suicune here. I figured I can get off a Toxic versus whatever he wants to bring in. he actually decides he's going to go back into his Alolan Ninetales. I could also have protected there, maybe just a Scout, but obviously there was very little reason to click Protect, as I did expect him to switch out. Not 1 6 Kofag is pretty important to his team this matchup. So Rogue made the smart play. Of course, this thing also could potentially be going for a Freeze Drive versus me, so that's something I need to watch out for. He actually withdraws here, and he goes back into Kofag. And I actually decide here that I'm going to go for Protect and Scout for the potential Freeze Dry, and also because it'll rack up more toxic damage, and I can switch around it accordingly. And he is back in his Kofag here, which is a little bit easier for me, I guess, in a way, because of the fact that, one, I know the Kofag can't really do a ton to me necessarily, and two, because I know I can just sit in here, and even if I get Toxic, it's not the end of the world, because I do have other options to his offense, and he didn't bring Volcarona this week. So I do have Suicune here, of course, and I decide that I thought that, you know, maybe he was going to try and switch out or set up, and I figured I could just roar regardless, maybe try and bring in something else that could get Toxic. So he decides here that he is going to, of course, have set up his Swords Dance, trying to break me or predict my switch, and his Zygarde gets brought in, which is very nice for me, because right now Rogue's team is currently just getting swapped around, letting Mons get Toxic. I switch out here actually, and I go into my Mudsdale. I figured that if he brings in his Toxicroak again on my Suicune, that's fine. With his Zygarde, of course, it's also fine if I brought in Mudsdale if he tried to set up. And he actually decides to go here into his Zapdos, as I click Earthquake. So, you know, very smart play on Rogue's part. I really just didn't want to mess around and let that thing set up. So here he goes for the Heat Wave, probably trying to burn me. It doesn't matter too much, as I am a Resto Chesto set, so I'll be able to clear through the burn anyway. And knowing that this is his best way to hit me is fairly good, as you saw there, it was like a 4-hit KO. And I have now also Toxic the Zapdos, which is going to put it in a fairly nice position in terms of where I want it to be, getting chipped down every turn, which is very, very nice for my team in general. He's just going to keep clicking Heat Wave here, which is perfectly fine for me, because, as I said, I can definitely beat this thing 1v1 no matter what. I can just get up Stealth Rock right here, and that'll force him to click Defog, which gives me even more time to Toxic Stall him. If he doesn't click Defog and he just clicks Heat Wave, that's fine. He's just taking more toxic damage, and I can always just rest up versus this thing. So he does go for the Defog here, of course, and I decide here actually, because of the fact that I figured that if he did go for the Heat Wave here, that was a little bit problematic for me, as I would be out of range to potentially rest up perfectly safely. I decided I was going to go for a rest here. The Defog, even if he clicked Defog over Heat Wave in my mind, I figured that I overall wasn't too bothered, because it's not like I can click anything else versus the Zapdos, with my moveset being Earthquake, Toxic, Rest, Stealth Rock. So it's not like I click anything else. So I can always just Stealth Rock next turn, which is perfectly fine, as it'll pressure the Zapdos when it comes in later on. Also will pressure things like the Ninetales, for example, will be taking a decent amount of chip. So he does, of course, switch in his Ninetales here, probably because it's one of his better ways to clear through this Mudsdale, as I get up my Stealth Rocks here. So now I have Stealth Rocks back on my field. I have a couple of Rogue's important Mons in this match of Toxic, so I'm feeling pretty confident in my team right now. And of course, he does have his Ninetales in here, which is very, very scary for me. So I decide here that I am going to go into my Snorlax, as I figure that Snorlax can always end up just sponging any hit that I want from this thing. And no matter what, I'm perfectly fine, because it's not like this thing is going to have Toxic. And if it does, then that's fine. Even then, I'm pretty sure, as I said, I was immunity. I forget if I was Thick Bat or not. But the point is, he doesn't have any way to hit me. He could have set up a Veil, of course, but it didn't really matter, I guess. And right here, he does bring in his Kofag, of course, as I actually go for the Rock Slide. I figured that if he stayed in, he's going to take a decent amount of damage anyway. And with the Toxic, I could kill him off at the very least next turn, depending on his spread. If not, then even this turn. And it would always do some damage to Kofag, which right now is taking some decent damage between the Hail, Hazards, and the Rock Slide. So it's in a decent position for me right now, but I still don't want to risk a burn if he has Will-O-Wisp. So I go back into Suicune. I figure that overall, as I said, Suicune is probably my most expendable mon at this point, because it's going to die to Zapdos. While it can definitely help me phase out things like Zygarde and also the Toxicroak, I feel like overall Suicune's presence in terms of the matchup is really just to clear setup mons. And I don't have any way to recover either reliably, especially because my leftovers are now neutralized because of burn, so it's only keeping me from losing HP. And then with the Hail, I'm also actually taking enough damage to start losing HP from all my inflictments. So because of this, I figure this Suicune is honestly just fodder at this point. I'm just going to try and make his team take as much damage as possible. So I'm going to go for the Roar. I figured that Toxicroak switching in doesn't exactly help me with dealing as much damage as possible. So right here, I decide I figured that I can probably live any hit from this Lycanroc at this point. I also forget that this thing gets a Z move, and Z moves do a lot of damage, but I knew I could live like any non-Z hit. And I forgot this was Z-Mon, as I mentioned. I should have clicked Protect here, because if I had clicked Protect here, then I could have definitely lived this hit from the Lycanroc. However, he is going to go for the Lycanium Z, and of course, I can't show that Z move on screen, so I'm just going to throw in some random drawing here, because it's an exclusive Z move. Ooh, technical difficulties have struck again on my channel 2 times in 1 week. Who would have thought? But you know, of course, you guys are just missing out on a beautiful Z move animation. There's like a lot of rocks. There's a Lycanroc, of course, you know, more beauty to this, and a dead Suicune as well. There's a dead Suicune on the screen as well, which that you guys did see happen. So I do decide here I'm going to bring a Terrakion. I figured that Terrakion can do a fair amount of damage with Earthquake at this point. If Zapdos wants to switch in, that's fine. I also have things such as Stone Edge, of course. I can go for close combat. Pretty much my entire moveset just hits his team very, very well with my Terrakion. I decided I'm going to go for Earthquake overall, though, because it hit what was in front of me while also still hitting a decent amount of switch-ins. If he brought in Zapdos, he was going to have to click Defog turn 1, so it at least give me a free switch-in in my answer. And yeah, overall, though, Kofag is just taking some nice damage at this point in the game, but I still do not want to risk my physical mons getting burned. So I go to my Gourgeist here. I figured that I can always potentially try and status his team, and also because I figured that I can do just overall decent against whatever he has. So I do get burned, of course, which is very unfortunate because my foul play Gourgeist can now less effectively handle rogues mons such as Zygarde and also Toxicroak, because I believe Toxicroak was a physical setup mon. And overall, though, I'm just in a bad position for Gourgeist. It seems like Rogue at this point is just trying to let his Kofag go down, which is why he just let me stay, why he just kept it in. He's also able to just get off a Shadow Ball here, which is perfectly fine. I should be able to sponge that hit. Does a little more than I'd like, but I figured that I can at least live the hit. And at this point, I know I'm going to outspeed him as well. So at the very least, I figured that I have now gotten the Kofag burned, which helps a lot in terms of making sure that he's not progressively gaining HP as I sit in versus it. And not only that, but I can always just kill it off with something later on in the game. So he does bring in his Zapdos here right now, and I figured that this is pretty nice for us because the Seed Bomb that we go for, between that and the Toxic, should definitely kill off the Zapdos. If it doesn't, then he's forced to defog next turn anyway, and if he doesn't defog, then he's just going to wear himself down more to Toxic as I click Foul Play and weaken him down. So of course, he is now losing pretty much all of his HP on his Zapdos, and he decides here he's just going to click Roost. Perfectly fine. Seed Bomb's going to do double damage now, as no matter what, as I said, no matter what, this Zapdos is going to die soon. I can also have gone... I decided ultimately, though, I had to go for the Synthesis, as if he did sack his Zapdos there by going for Heat Wave and clear my Gourgeist, it was a little bit problematic in terms of, well, one, because Zygarde would be pretty free to come in, and I don't exactly have a lot left that can handle Zygarde. I would pretty much rely on Toxic stalling it with Mudsdale at this point in the game. So I do sort of need to keep this thing alive, and that's why once I got my Synthesis off, I decided I'm going to go into I'm going to go into Too Much Duncan. I figured I can just go for Rock Slides, and overall his team really doesn't like Rock Slides at this point. Even Kofag is in a position where it can't exactly just take a Rock Slide really well, because 2 Rock Slides should be able to kill at this point. So Rogue does go for the Defog here, which is perfectly fine by me. Overall, I just really need something dead, and I figured that if Zapdos stays in, I can just go for Rock Slide, get some nice damage off on it. Of course, he has his Chardy Berry, which does suck for us as he's able to chew this Rock Slide. However, it does sort of mean that he pretty much will need to Roost up this turn, or he will end up killing himself off, as between my attack and his, it's going to be a dead Zapdos. So he is probably deciding on his sack at this moment. He actually goes in the Zygarde, however, and decides he's going to just sponge whatever Rock Slide I go for. And I actually decide I'm going to click Earthquake, because either I figured he roosts here and ends up being weak to Earthquake and dying, switches out into something, it's going to take a fair amount from Earthquake, or he ends up just killing himself off to Toxic. So the Earthquake there was very nice for me. He does decide to double out here. He goes back into his Zapdos, probably just trying to maybe get up Veil later on and just sack whatever mons he can to freely get up Veil. So I go into my Gourgeist here. I figured that at this point, it was my best switch into Zygarde left, of course. I could have brought in the Mudsdale as well, as if I went into Mudsdale, I could have always just went for Earthquake and spammed. However, I figured that Gourgeist is more reliable in terms of being able to burn the Zygarde and just helping wear down the damage. I do need to switch out, however, as I am going to be kind of fucked if the Zapdos does go for Heat Wave. However, he just decides he's going to go for Roost here and get up all his HP back, or at least near all of it. He's around 3/4. So, luckily though, I do believe that he does not have a good way to hit me, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of his moveset. So, I do luckily get the prediction of his switch right, and he does bring in his Alolan Ninetales here. So, at this point in the game, I figured that it was pretty safe for me to just Mega Evolve and maybe click Agility or just try and kill off something. I figured that overall, if I Mega Evolve here with Ampharos and just click something in terms of an offense, I can break his team fairly well, as Zapdos is a little bit weakened and is going to take a decent amount of damage from whatever I go for. And even if you didn't stay in between the Focus Blast and the Toxic damage, I should be getting fine HP off on it. Focus Blast also helped with things such as the Ninetales if it was coming in. It also helped with pretty much everything besides the Kofag, but the Kofag overall was going to be worn down fairly well by Thunderbolts at this point. So I wasn't too worried about that. I ultimately decided though that I need to bring in Snorlax, and he does get up his Aurora Veil here, of course. Aurora Veil is going to allow him to just sweep my team with Zygarde, and at this point I pretty much just accepted my defeat because he's now behind Veil with his Zygarde. It's going to be able to just set up a Coil versus me and then wall up my Snorlax because I'm Assault Vest, so I can't even like Toxic Stall. I can't set up versus the thing at all and just take advantage of him setting up. So at this point, I'm sort of just banking on being able to burn the Zygarde and hope that he just doesn't kill off my team somehow. And Rogue does the one thing I did not want Rogue to do, and he goes for a Substitute here. So at this point in the game, Rogue won at this point. There was literally no way that Rogue could lose. So the next few turns are going to be a sped up compilation of Rogue going through himself setting up and stalling out. Well, not even stalling out, just setting up to the point where he can then plow through my team. So I'm going to fast forward through that. I'm going to probably put up some like really depressing music, I guess, like, you know, Hello Darkness, My Old Friend, or something that signifies that this is the end of the match. And I'll get back to you guys at the end. And yeah, that's going to be it for this week, guys. If you guys enjoyed the slaughter that Rogue gave us, of course, leave a like down below. Check out his channel along with the rest of the MPL coaches. In terms of if you guys are asking why I just let him set up with Zygarde, at that point in the game, he was already behind a sub. Had I brought in Terrakion, I would have had to break the sub. He could have killed me off 1,000 arrows. If I brought in Ampharos, he killed me 1,000 arrows. If I brought in Mudsdale, I couldn't break his sub with Earthquake. So there was nothing else really to do, I guess, at the point in the game. No matter what, the Zygarde killed off everything. And besides, the only thing I sped to kill it off, or at least hit the sub first, was Terrakion. But I died breaking the sub. So yeah, overall though, a very, very brutal game. But I'll see you guys next week when we face Bill, coach of the Adelaide Honchcrows, and I will see you guys then. Peace out.